You'll see however long this video is, but it should be a somewhat substantial talk. I really am going to talk about everything from starting the initial idea for writing a book through to getting the book in people's hands, either a physical copy or an ebook that they can buy and download on Amazon. And I'll talk about marketing, promotion, and developing skills as a writer, and basically things along those lines as well. Throughout this talk, I just want to emphasize that everything I'm saying is absolutely just my opinion. So if I say something and if you think, well, that doesn't seem right, or if you have some experience and I'm talking about part of the process and your reaction is that's not how I do it, that's absolutely fine. So everybody's probably going to work things out themselves. Writing is an unbelievably complicated endeavor. There's a ton of different moving pieces, and it's the sort of thing that if you ask 5 different writers, you're going to get 7 different opinions on how to do things. So this is all just my opinion. And so rather than throughout the talk me just constantly saying, well, in my opinion, in my experience, I've found that, I'm just going to talk about things a little bit more concretely. But please imagine that for everything I'm prefacing it with, this is just my opinion. I could be wrong. Other people can have other opinions. You might do things differently. Feel free to type questions in at the video. I'll come back periodically. And if there's anything that isn't clear, feel free to just type out a question and I'll try to answer it when I see it. And at the end of the talk, I will give my email address. And so you can just jump to the end of the talk if you want to get that. And you feel free to email me if you leave a comment and I don't answer, or if you'd rather ask privately. I don't mind talking one-on-one. So feel free to just to contact me either of those ways if there's something that I don't cover as clearly as I could. This video is based on a book I wrote, one of my 8 books, and I called it The Gamemaster's Guide to Writing Fiction. And this is the cover on the slide right here. And you can get the slides that I'm going to be showing here. If you want to see the slide deck and go through it, there's the link to the slides. There isn't a link to the video because the fact that you're watching the video, I guess you already know where it is. There's also a link to the Amazon page for this book. So if you wanted to get an ebook version of this, or if you wanted to get a paperback, a printed copy of this book, eventually I'm probably going to do an audiobook. So if you wanted an audiobook version, that should be when it becomes available. That'll be at the Amazon link as well. The content is very, very, very similar. This talk is based on the book, but some people just learn better by hearing somebody talk about it in a YouTube video, or reading the words on the page, or going through a slide. Perhaps if you wanted to give a talk of your own, you might be able to use some of my slides. Feel free to use them for whatever is useful to you. The organization of this talk is I'm going to put everything together in terms of chronologically how you might go about writing your first book. And so the steps will be the order you'll do things in when you're writing that first book, and through to, as I mentioned, releasing it on Amazon. I'm first of all going to talk about some overriding concerns, and that you should keep in mind throughout, that it'll apply through the entire talk. Then I'm going to talk about story ideas and how you can go about coming up with ideas for your story, evaluating those, deciding which are better, which are worse, things that kind of might tempt you into doing things a certain way, and I'll caution you against doing some of those things. I'll then talk about outlining, which is a technique a lot of people use to organize their writing before they actually start writing. Then I'll talk about writing your first draft. Then following that, I'll talk about revising. So once you have the book written, going through and revisions and kind of tweaking it and fixing problems and polishing up the work. I'll talk about editing and all the different options and approaches to editing your work. I'll talk about traditional versus self-publishing and my sort of opinion on both, and why I've come down on the self-publishing side. I'll talk about beta readers and feedback that you can get on your writing when you're gearing up to publish it. I'll talk about how you format your book. So this is making it pretty like what you see in a printed book, and formatting it so that it can go in an ebook. And I'll talk about cover design, getting a cover for your book. Then I will talk about publishing and releasing the book. So actually putting it up on Amazon, a site like Amazon, and letting people purchase the book and get copies of it. I'll talk about book piracy, people stealing your book without paying for it. I'll talk about generative AI, which is things like ChatGPT, which creates things automatically, and text and images. And I'll talk about the fears that a lot of authors have about generative AI, and how some authors will use generative AI to create covers for themselves. I'll talk about marketing and promoting your books once you have them up for sale, how you convince people to buy them and try to sell it. And I'll talk about writing success and what success might mean to each of you, and how you can evaluate as you're going through this process and releasing books. And if you continue on past one book, success as a writer, what all the different stages and all the different levels and all the different ways that you could view that. Then I'll just wrap up with some final words, sort of summing up all of this. And that'll be also when I provide my email address if anyone wants to contact me by email.